Buchanan was a great educator who died in 1968, but he'd said, "The powers of the mind are the powers of the man." And building the power of the mind is largely an after-school job. It's a spare time job. This is why developing the powers of the mind are not necessarily dependent on a formal education. A good liberal education is the best start if you're lucky enough to get one. A good base of English, world history, world literature, and math are fundamental to developing the real powers of the mind, the very subject so many young people dread and work so hard to avoid. The powers of the mind are the powers of the man. Once in a talk Buchanan delivered at St. John's College, he asked, "How are you doing? Do you believe in and trust your intellect, that innate power that never sleeps? You've lived a lot. You've fallen into the hands of scholars and into the grooves of practice. You've suffered the winds of doctrine and have gotten lost in the jungle of ideologies. Latterly, you've been stormed by scientific miracle. In all these learnings and practices, have you listened to the small, spontaneous voice within that asks continually, if these things are true? Have you allowed this voice to speak louder and remind you that you do not know, that you know you do not know, that you know what you do not know? Do you believe that knowledge is possible, that truth is attainable, and that it's always your business to seek it, although evidence is overwhelmingly against it? Have you in the course of your life become your own teacher? Have you yet recognized that you are and always have been your own teacher? Liberal education has as its end the free mind, and the free mind must be its own teacher. Intellectual freedom begins when one says with Socrates that he knows nothing, and then goes on to add, "I know what it is that I don't know." The powers of the mind are the powers of the man. Recent studies seem to indicate that the powers of the mind are infinite, rich, fertile land awaiting development. If you can think of something you want that is within the realm of human accomplishment, I can tell you how to get it. To do so, let me tell you a short story about what happened to a friend of mine. My friend is a multimillionaire, tears around the world in his private jet, and in general is keeping busy and having himself a pretty good time. Some years back, he was flat broke and a total failure. He was a failure as a husband, a father, a provider, and had the personality of a polecat. No friends, a complete and thoroughgoing bust. And one day he fell to wondering how people succeed in the world. He had enough nerve to make an appointment with one of his city's most successful men, and during the interview asked him, "How can I succeed?" So the great and successful man gave him the secret key to all the abundance he could possibly want. And it was in this short sentence. He said, "People have everything we want. People have everything we want. If all the people in this country gave you a nickel, you'd have $10 million. The people have everything you want. Your part of the bargain is to provide something for the people that they will buy in sufficient numbers to permit you to have what you want. Your part of the bargain is to be worthy of the price you set as your goal. Your job is to grow as a person to fill the shoes of the person you've decided to become. When you set a goal for yourself, you've established a self-fulfilling prophecy. A self-fulfilling prophecy, as S.I. Hayakawa has pointed out, is a statement that is neither true nor false, but is capable of becoming true if it is believed. Reaching your material goals will not mean that you're a nice guy, or that your wife and kids will like you, or that you'll be popular or intelligent or interesting. But you'll have that house and that money and anything else you want that money can buy. And if you're really smart, you'll develop at the same time the things that money cannot buy. Things like humility, love of your fellow man, and that includes the wife and kids and the neighbors and so on. People often say, young people especially, "I want to do something for the world. I want to be of service during my lifetime." It's long been my opinion that the best thing you can do for the world is to do the best thing you can do for you. Make out your want list. It's by getting what you most want that you will usually make your greatest contribution to society. We do that which we are motivated to do. The greater the motivation, the more we do. We're motivated most not by what we think we should be doing for the world, but rather by what we most want from the world. You know, Edison didn't invent the electric light for the good of humanity. He invented it because he wanted to more than anything else. That it's been a great boon to man and created one of the world's greatest industries are besides the point. The best preachers are those who enjoy being preachers, and it's the same with teachers, generals, businessmen, and wives and mothers. Those who make the greatest contribution and by so doing reap the greatest rewards are those who thoroughly enjoy what they're doing. The sourest, most miserable and unhappy people on earth are those in fields of service in which they find no deep and abiding joy. They've been punishing themselves for some imagined sin, and they look the part. They often do more harm than good. How many times have you wanted to say to someone, "Look, friend, if you don't like your work, why don't you quit? But don't take it out on me." So if you have your heart set on doing good for the world and or humanity, get into work for which you're best fitted. Work you can thoroughly enjoy and throw yourself into 100%. A happy plumber makes a greater contribution to the world than a miserable university professor or an unhappy lawyer. Some of the world's greatest artists, people who have made tremendous contributions, were neurotic, unhappy people such as Edgar Allan Poe, Vincent van Gogh, Nietzsche, Wagner, and many others. But they had found their outlets. They had found the fields in which they wanted to work, had to work. Surely they would have been even more miserable had they not found their life's work. They would have been insufferable in any other. For some people, there's only one thing for them to do. I can't imagine a Picasso doing anything but drawing and painting pictures. But for most of the rest of us, there are undoubtedly many fields in which we can find deep satisfaction and reward. A fine business executive can be happy in any number of kinds of businesses, and in many different positions. Another man might be just as happy as a carpenter as he would be as an electrician. But when it comes to serving mankind or feeling guilty because you don't think you're doing enough, it's good to remember that we can usually serve the world best by working toward and achieving the goals we want most to reach. Millions of young people in high schools and colleges throughout the world ask themselves, how can I spend my life doing the most good? The best way is to spend your life doing that which you most want to do. In that way, everybody wins. Well, how are you doing in the enthusiasm department these days? The saddest days of our lives are those days in which we can find nothing to be enthusiastic about. I think you can say that a person's enthusiasm is in direct proportion to the importance of what it is he's looking forward to. Thus, there are all sorts of degrees of enthusiasm. People tend to be mildly enthusiastic on Fridays simply because it's the last day of the week and they've got a free weekend coming up. People tend to be more enthusiastic about going home after work at night than they are about leaving for work in the morning. But the most fortunate people on earth are those who live most of their lives in a state of energizing enthusiasm. And you know what the key to enthusiasm is? Well, there are two keys, really. One comes from learning, the other comes from accomplishment. Learning new things tends to keep our enthusiasm high. Perhaps this explains the natural enthusiasm of children. If you've paid much attention to children, you've noticed that they're naturally enthusiastic and they're naturally happy. The reason adults tend to lose a lot of their enthusiasm for living is that they usually stop learning. As soon as school's over, they take the stand, consciously or unconsciously, that they know enough. Any learning they do from that point on, they do passively through the natural passage of time and experience, or again, passively through the media, newspapers, radio, and television. If new learning comes to them, it does so largely through no efforts, or at least minimal efforts on their part. Learning little that is new or interesting, their lives become repetitious and settle down into well-worn grooves. They see the same people and go through the same motions every day, and gradually or quickly or all or most of the enthusiasm fades from their lives. The second key usually ties in with the first, the second key being accomplishment. It's pretty hard to accomplish something new without first learning something new, even if the accomplishment is limited to improving one's golf game or making furniture in the basement. But we're enthusiastic when we're working on a project we want to complete or master. The key word there is want. It has to be something we want very much to do, as opposed to those duties and projects we must do whether we like them or not. Did you ever get a good look at a dog's face when he's chasing a rabbit? It's the happiest, most alert expression you'll ever see in your life. He's got something wonderfully worthwhile to do, and he's having the time of his life trying to do it. You'd hardly know it was the same dog you saw snoozing and twitching on the back porch before the rabbit came into the picture. He couldn't even keep his eyes open then. It's the same with people. The rabbit may be different for each of us, but it's our job to flesh it out. The word enthusiasm comes from the Greek word entheos, which means the God within. And the happiest, most interesting people are those who have found the secret of maintaining their enthusiasm, that God within. You know, one of the most difficult things to teach, and because of this, the most difficult thing for a person to learn, is the all-powerful force of faith or belief. As the great Dr. Ernest Holmes once put it, and he devoted his life to the teaching of this great truth, here's a power which every person has, but which few people use consciously. One man does not possess this power above another, or to a greater degree. Everyone has it, since everyone lives and has consciousness. The question, then, is not, do we have the power? It is merely, are we using it correctly? Dr. Alexis Carrel, the great Nobel Prize-winning physician, said that when a person discovers the extent of his powers by the conscious and correct use of faith or belief, or whatever you want to call it, he finds that there has been introduced an entirely new set of laws into his experience. New to his experience, yes, but the laws are not new themselves. To be great is to be misunderstood. Living these days tends to become so complex. We have a way of forgetting what's important, and from time to time it's an excellent idea to return to the basics. Go over the ground rules and make sure we've still got them fixed in our minds. I recently had occasion to do some motivational work with many thousands of employees of one of the country's largest business firms. I found there was a good deal of confusion among the younger people, especially regarding what it takes to succeed. It seems that while most people have no trouble at all understanding cause and effect as it works on bodies in a physics class, they seldom make the connection between this same law and themselves. The law of cause and effect can be restated as it applies to people, but it works much the same way all the same. Every act we perform during our waking lives is a cause, and it will have a corresponding effect. By controlling the acts we perform, we can thus control what will happen to us. Barring a calamity of some sort which is beyond the area of our personal control, we can, by controlling our thoughts and acts, control our lives. Now, we found that this came as news to a surprising number of young people, as did other information relating to the same law of cause and effect. In restating this law as it applies to successful living, we might say, our rewards in life will always be in exact proportion to our service. For example, you can tell what a business firm is doing for the community by observing what the community is doing for the business firm. If the firm wants a larger slice of community rewards, more sales and profits, let's say, why then it must come up with more service. Again, cause and effect. If any given person wants more in the way of rewards, psychic or tangible or both, he too must find ways of being of greater service. The trouble with so many is that they tend to forget this rule, if indeed they ever really understood it, get themselves into ruts of habit and operate on minimums. This simply guarantees that they'll receive minimum returns. You'll even hear such people say, I do no more than I have to. Well, I'm not going to do any more than I'm paid to do. Well, these are people who have forgotten, who have never learned the first rule of successful living. They don't understand that they're controlling their own returns. By performing at minimum standards, they're keeping themselves at the bottom of the pile. Standing in the biggest gold mine on earth, they insist upon using a teaspoon instead of grabbing a snow shovel. If a person would form the habit of asking himself every morning while he's taking a shower and getting ready for work, how can I increase my service today? And if he'd then come up with an idea or two, he'd soon find himself at or near the top of the pile. He would find himself receiving all sorts of interesting benefits on and off the job. It's been said that none of us is smart enough to remember everything he knows. Most of us know this simple rule. Lord Chesterfield said, we are more than half what we are by imitation. The great point is to choose good models and to study them with care. We're more than half what we are by imitation. And 300-some years ago, René Descartes, the French scientist and philosopher, said, the chief cause of human errors is to be found in the prejudices picked up in childhood. And the modern philosopher, George Santa Anna, wrote, children insensibly accept all the suggestions of sense and language. Belief then settles down in sullenness and apathy to a narrow circle of vague assumptions, to none of which the mind need have any deep affinity, none of which it need really understand, but which nevertheless it clings to for lack of other footing. The philosophy of the common man is an old wife that gives him no pleasure, yet he cannot live without her, and he resents any aspersions that strangers may cast on her character. People are not naturally skeptics, wondering if a single one of their beliefs can be reasonably preserved. They are dogmatists, angrily confident of maintaining them all. All of this goes to point up the importance of deliberately choosing models we feel are worthy of emulation, and just as deliberately rejecting those which have not proved by the conduct of their own lives that they are worthy of our patterning our lives after. The greatest thing that can happen to a person is to find someone who represents what he himself wants very much to become, a fine model after whom he can pattern his conduct and attitudes. Whenever such a person is faced with a tricky decision, he can ask himself, what would so-and-so do faced with this situation? The answer is almost always clear. We have a way of knowing perfectly well what others, whom we know and admire, would do in a given circumstance, or at least we think we do, and it makes our decisions just that much easier, and at the same time tends to keep us on the right track. Going back to the Santa Ana quotation, he said, people are not naturally skeptics wondering if a single one of their beliefs can be reasonably preserved. They are dogmatists, angrily confident of maintaining them all. We should be skeptics with regard to our beliefs unless we have been privately convinced that they are true and worth having. I like the statement of Nietzsche when he said that the idea is not to have the courage of our convictions, it's to have the courage to challenge our conviction. As Chesterfield said, the great point is to choose good models and to study them with care. Pythagoras was misunderstood, and Socrates, and Jesus, and Luther, and Copernicus, and Galileo, and Newton, and every pure and wise spirit that ever took flesh. To be great is to be misunderstood. It's been said that we need reminding as much as we need educating, and from time to time we need to return to the old basic rules. They give meaning and stability in what can otherwise seem like a confusing world. Here in a much abbreviated form are some of John W. Gardner's rules for keeping an organization young and vital. 1. The organization must have an effective program for the recruitment and development of talent. People are the ultimate source of renewal. The shortage of able, highly trained, highly motivated men and women will be a permanent feature of our kind of society, and every organization that wants its share of the short supply is going to have to get out and fight for it. 2. The organization must be a hospitable environment for the individual. Organizations that have killed the spark of individuality in their members will have greatly diminished their capacity for change. 3. The organization must have built-in provisions for self-criticism, an atmosphere in which uncomfortable questions can be asked. The Turks have a proverb that says, the man who tells the truth should have one foot in the stirrup. This should not be true of a vital organization. 4. Fluidity of internal structure. There have to be departments and divisions, but jurisdictional boundaries tend to get set in concrete. Pretty soon, no solution to a problem is seriously considered if there's any danger that it will threaten jurisdictional lines. 5. An adequate system of communication. Easy, effective communication. 6. The organization must have some means of combating the process by which men and women become prisoners of their procedures. The rule book grows fatter as the ideas grow fewer. 7. The organization capable of continuous renewal will have found some means of combating the vested interests that grow up in every human institution. The lowest employees have their vested interests, every foreman has his, and every department head has his. Every change threatens someone's privileges, someone's authority, someone's status.